See, this is why when I encounter a young woman in distress on the side of the road on a rainy night that I just keep on driving. Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today is Subscriber Suggestion Sunday, and this film was suggested by subscriber Mark Alvarez. Thank you, Mark, for suggesting this one. This is Macabre, the 2009 movie from Indonesia. I just finished watching it this morning, and after giving it a lot of thought, what I found about this movie was that it was a massively bloody, gory, fun thrill ride that had very excellent characters, but their personalities were somewhat inconsistent with their choices, and it prevented this movie from being absolutely amazing. As it was, I thought it was very good, but it could have been great with a capital G. And to get into more detail than that, I'm going to have to get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And this one followed a group of friends that were out for one last night on the town. 2 of them, a newlywed couple that is expecting with child, are on their way to live in Australia. And they also have an opportunity to have a reconciliation between brother and sister. All told, it is an eventful evening of relationships and friends and family. And on their way from one destination to another, they encounter a young woman that is in distress on the side of the road. It is a rainstorm. It is nighttime. She is lonely, and she says she was robbed, and her house is on the way to Jakarta, where they are headed. And once they arrive there, she insists that they come in and get introduced to her family, her mother and her brother and so on. And her mother introduces herself as Dara and insists that they stay for dinner as a thank you for helping her daughter out. And that's when things go terribly, terribly wrong in a way that I'm not really going to get into without getting into a whole lot of spoilers. I will be having a deep dive discussion of this one because there are elements of it that I want to freely discuss without worrying about talking about spoilers. But as it stands with these reviews, I do keep them spoiler free. Suffice it to say, this was a very, very simple premise that did have a lot more going on under the surface than it superficially seemed, and I really, really did like it. I gave the plot an 18 out of 25 points here. Really, I think this answered just enough questions about the backstory of the villains that it caused it to have a very solid story, a very good narrative, while having just enough unanswered that it maintained intrigue and had me thinking about it for quite some time afterward. This has really been rattling around in my brain since I watched it this morning. And I really, really just loved the way that all the characters were played out. I really loved their personalities and the way that they interacted with one another. It was really fantastic in the finer details of all the story elements of this, but there were some critical character choices that were made that I really think needed a bit of polish, and that's what I'm going to be discussing in my deep dive. I'll talk about it a little bit more in the next category, but suffice it to say, 18 out of 25, I did enjoy the plot of this one. The intent I gave a 17 out of 25. This is where I really felt like this was a high score. This was definitely better than average, but it should have been much higher. You had in this one villains that were very cold, very emotionless, very calculating, and operating with surgical precision to their personalities. What they thought of the people under their knives was very clear in their interaction with them, but the choices that they made didn't really reflect that. It was a very weird contrast that I wasn't necessarily terribly on board for. Really what it came down to was you really had, from a screenwriter's point of view, 2 major choices to go. You can either have the villains lower their guard and make mistakes so that the heroes can have a chance against them, or you can have the heroes rise up to the level of the villains in the aptitude and the efficiency and the cold calculating nature, or just ultimately the brutality, and thereby having an equal playing field there. And of those two, this movie chose the former, and that really just didn't fit for me. I would much rather have the heroes rise to the occasion than the villains become a bit bumbling. So that's ultimately where I kind of came down on the points a little bit, just on the intention level there, because it really did affect the impact of the movie for me. The acting I gave a 19 out of 25. All told, everybody in this did a really great job. But I would be absolutely remiss if I did not point out singularly the stand-up performance of the mother character of Dara, played by Sharifa Danish. She was amazing. I mean, seriously, talk about an actor that was born to play a role. The Dara character fit her like a comfortable slipper, and I loved every single minute of it. This movie is absolutely worth watching, if for no other reason, and there are plenty of other reasons, but if for no other reason than watching Sharifa Danish play Dara. It is phenomenal. The technical I gave an 18 out of 25. This had blood and guts and dismemberments galore, and it did a really great job of all of them. But again, this is a little bit of a situation where it's a high score, but it should have been higher, because as good as all those practical effects were, the technical did suffer a bit in ways that it really shouldn't have. There was a lot of issues with color correction and lighting and camera work that really showed through with this film. Certain scenes would be toned down in color and toned down in light coming into the camera, and then raised up in post-production to the point where it was a bit grainy and a bit messy and a bit washed out and yellowed. And that would ordinarily be fine if we're talking about from one scene to the next, but we're talking about same scene, different angles. And that just seemed a little bit technically a bit of a mistake, honestly, and that's something that does affect the score on that level. Yes, I do get nitpicky, and I'm not going to apologize for it, but I do think that should have been addressed. That should have been much better, but as far as the effects go, really loved them. And that gives us a total score of 72 out of 100 points. This was a movie that I absolutely would recommend, but it is a bit of a turn your brain off and just enjoy the gore kind of movie. If you don't, you're going to spend half the time wanting so badly to yell at the screen with some of the characters' incompetent choices. And because of this, and just knowing that it could have been fixed with some minimal rewriting and adhering to the concept of characters' personality dictate the choices of the plot line, it should have been better. It should have been great. It should have been epic, but as it was very good, and I would recommend it. And that is my review of 2009's Indonesian movie Macabre. Thank you again, Mark Alvarez, for suggesting this one. If you want to suggest a movie from me to review on a Sunday, please leave it in the comments below. I'll be looking for that and adding it to the list. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.